The galaxy was burning. World after world fell into silence, their skies turning red with fire. Entire civilizations, once proud, once powerful, were now only whispers in the dark. The aliens had fought bravely. They had used weapons brighter than suns, machines that could bend reality, ships that could cross galaxies in a breath. But none of it worked. The enemy was unstoppable. They came without warning, without mercy. They did not speak, they did not negotiate. They only consumed. They devoured. They erased. The aliens called them the Devourers. No fleet could stand against them. No fortress could resist them. Armies vanished like dust in the storm. One empire, mighty for 10,000 years, fell in a single season. Another empire, rich with millions of worlds, begged for peace. But the Devourers did not understand peace. They only understood destruction. Soon, all across the galaxy, only despair remained. The aliens gathered in secret councils. Leaders who had once been enemies sat together in fear. Old wars and old grudges were forgotten. What use were grudges, when the end of everything was near? They asked the same question, again and again. How do we fight what cannot be stopped? Their scientists searched for answers. Their engineers built new weapons. Their prophets prayed to old gods. But nothing worked. The Devourers kept coming. Every battle was the same. Alien fleets would stand proud, their weapons shining, their commanders confident. But then the enemy would arrive, cold, endless, unbroken. And always, the fleets were shattered, their ashes left drifting among the stars. The aliens were losing. No, worse than losing. They were being erased. And then, in the darkest hour, one voice in the council spoke words no one expected. There is one race we have not called. The chamber grew silent. Every eye turned. A primitive race, the voice continued. Small, forgotten, left behind by history. But dangerous. Very dangerous. Whispers filled the room. The name of that race had not been spoken in centuries. Many thought they were extinct. Many hoped they were forgotten. But they were not gone. Humans. At first, the council laughed. Humans? A backwater species from a single world? Fragile, weak, barely worth memory? Surely they could not matter now. But others did not laugh. Others remembered. They remembered human wars, human rebellions, human courage. They remembered how humans had once fought even when victory was impossible. They remembered the one thing humans had that no other race possessed. It was not strength. It was not technology. It was not wisdom. It was something darker. Something dangerous. The will to fight when all hope was lost. Legends spoke of humans who would not surrender, even when facing death. Stories told of soldiers who fought with broken weapons, who fought with their bare hands, who fought until the very end. The council could not understand it. Why would any species throw itself into the fire, knowing it could not win? But perhaps that was exactly what the galaxy needed. Perhaps the only way to fight the Devourers was to fight as humans did, with madness, with fury, with no thought of survival. The aliens looked at one another. Fear filled their hearts. But fear of the Devourers was stronger. Slowly, carefully, the decision was made. Call them, the council said. Find the humans. Beg them if we must. Without them, we are already dead. And so, a secret ship was prepared. A ship that would cross the broken war zones, slip through enemy patrols, and find the small, forgotten world called Earth. The aliens had no choice. They had tried every weapon, every plan, every strategy. Nothing worked. But maybe, just maybe, this one dangerous gamble could change everything. Because humans were not like other species. They were unpredictable. They were stubborn. They were reckless. And sometimes, reckless is exactly what victory needs. The galaxy held its breath. Would the humans answer the call? Would they rise to the fight? Or would they look at the galaxy, burning and broken, and say, "This is not our war"? The stars themselves seemed to whisper the question, echoing across the dark void. The chamber was silent. Deep inside a hollow moon, far from the eyes of the enemy, the last free leaders of the galaxy gathered. Some had traveled across broken war zones. Some had left their worlds already burning. All had come with the same thought: this was their last chance. It was called the Last Council. The room was filled with voices, but not with hope. Some shouted in anger. Some wept in despair. Some begged for impossible miracles. The oldest among them spoke first. His skin was cracked like stone, his eyes dim with centuries. "We cannot win," he said. "We must surrender. Perhaps the Devourers will show mercy." His words spread like poison. Many nodded, their hearts already broken. But another stood, tall, with wings of silver light. Her voice was sharp as steel. "Mercy," she said. "Have you not seen their work? Do you not smell the ash on the stars? The Devourers do not forgive. They do not bargain. They only consume. Surrender is death." The council erupted in noise. Some shouted for surrender, others for war. Some demanded retreat to hidden worlds. Some called for sacrifice. It was chaos. And then, one voice cut through the storm. A small voice. Calm, steady, dangerous. "We have one option left," it said. The room froze. Every leader turned toward the speaker. It was a thin, quiet figure, from a race long forgotten by the galaxy. He leaned forward, his black eyes glinting in the dim light. "Humans," he whispered. The silence that followed was heavy. A silence full of fear. "Humans," someone spat. "That primitive species. That violent mistake." They were locked away, cast out, left to rot on their little blue world. "They are nothing." But the quiet figure did not move. "Nothing. Do you not remember? Have you forgotten their wars, their rebellions, their endless hunger for survival?" Murmurs spread through the chamber. Memories awoke. Old scars burned again. One leader hissed, "They are chaos. They bring ruin wherever they go." Another muttered, "Yes, but ruin is what we need." The council argued, louder and louder. "They are dangerous. They are unpredictable. They are killers." But always, one truth returned. The galaxy was dying. Nothing else had worked. Nothing else could work. And deep inside, they all knew the same thing. Humans were not like the others. They were not the strongest. They were not the smartest. They were not the wisest. But they were something else. Humans had a madness in their hearts. A fire that did not die, even in the darkest night. Other species fought for victory. Humans fought because they refused to stop. Even when they were broken, even when they were outnumbered, even when death was certain, humans fought on. That was why the galaxy had once feared them. And now, perhaps, that was why the galaxy might need them. The silver-winged leader rose again. Her voice shook the chamber. "Without them, we are finished. With them, perhaps we still die. But we die fighting. And maybe, just maybe, they find a way to win." The council looked around. Eyes met. No one spoke. Finally, the oldest, the one who had begged for surrender, let out a slow breath. "Very well," he said. "Send the call." The words spread like fire. Orders were given. Codes were unlocked, secret paths revealed. A single ship was chosen, fast, hidden, armed only with hope. It would travel through the burning front lines. It would risk everything. Its mission was clear. Find the humans. The crew trembled. For they knew what they carried was not just a message. It was the last chance for life itself. As the ship left the hollow moon, the council sat in silence once more. Some prayed. Some wept. Some stared into the dark, wondering if they had just signed the galaxy's final death sentence. For humans were dangerous. Humans were chaos. And chaos could save, or destroy. The stars outside shimmered, cold and distant, as if watching. And the galaxy waited to see if the most dangerous species of all would answer the call. The humans had forgotten. For centuries, Earth was silent, cut off from the great empires, left alone. No alien ships came, no messengers arrived. Humanity grew, humanity fought, humanity dreamed, but always alone, in the shadows of the stars. Then, one night, the silence broke. A streak of light crossed the sky. Not a meteor. Not a satellite. Something older, something stranger. It landed in the dark ocean, vanishing beneath the waves. The governments of Earth were alarmed. Military radars lit up. Satellites tracked the unknown object. But before human ships could arrive, the visitor revealed itself. A vessel unlike anything humanity had built rose from the water. Black, sleek, alive with shifting lights. And from its heart, smaller crafts flew, glowing like fireflies. The world panicked. Was this an invasion? Another war of the worlds? But no weapons fired. No armies landed. Instead, a voice spoke. Not through radios, not through television, but inside the minds of all who listened. We come in peace. We come in desperation. We come to ask for your help. The world froze. Aliens. Real. Speaking to every human at once. At first, people laughed. A trick, they said. A hoax. But then, the alien ship descended, slowly, carefully, into the heart of the Pacific Ocean. And for the first time in centuries, Earth saw beings from the stars. The aliens did not come with arrogance. They came with fear. They knelt. Their long, fragile limbs bent, their heads bowed low before the leaders of Earth. And their words were not commands. They were pleas. Help us. You are our last hope. The humans stared. Their soldiers kept weapons ready. Their leaders kept their faces hard. But the aliens' fear was real. Their voices cracked. Their bodies shook. Slowly, the truth spilled out. The galaxy was burning. Worlds had already been lost. Fleets had already been broken. The devourers were coming. And Earth was not safe. At first, the humans did not believe. How could this be true? Humanity had only just begun to reach the stars. They were small, weak, unprepared. But the aliens showed them. Images of shattered worlds, broken fleets, cities swallowed by fire. Screams of the dying, voices cut short by silence. And at last, the humans understood. This was not a hoax. This was not a game. This was the end of everything. The humans argued. Leaders fought with words. Some said, "This is not our war. Let the galaxy burn. Earth will hide." Others shouted, "If we do nothing, the devourers will come for us too. There is no safety." In secret rooms, generals whispered. Scientists dreamed of alien weapons. Corporations dreamed of alien riches. But the common people, the billions who watched the skies, felt only one thing: fear. And yet, in that fear, a spark was born. Humans had always been strange. They laughed at danger, they mocked death, they fought even when defeat was certain. And now, faced with the greatest enemy of all, that same old madness began to rise. A soldier spoke to the cameras, his face hard, his voice steady. "If they want to fight, let them come. Humanity doesn't kneel." A scientist whispered to her students. "If their weapons failed, then we will build better ones." And in the streets, ordinary people clenched their fists and said, "No one takes Earth. Not now. Not ever." The aliens watched in silence. At first, they were confused. Then they were afraid. And then, slowly they began to hope. Perhaps the legends were true. Perhaps humans really were as dangerous as the stories claimed. The Council's gamble had been made. The humans had been found. Now, the question was not whether humans would fight. The question was, what would happen when they did? Because humans did not fight like others. Humans fought with fury, with creativity, with recklessness, and sometimes, with madness. The aliens had come in desperation. But they might have awakened something far more dangerous than even the devourers could imagine. The stars above Earth shimmered, cold and waiting. The war had come to humanity's doorstep. And for the first time in history, the galaxy whispered a new question. When humans fight, who can possibly stop them? The humans had heard the stories. The aliens spoke of the devourers with shaking voices, with eyes full of fear. But humans were not content with stories. They wanted to see for themselves. And soon, they did. It began at the edge of the solar system. Far beyond Pluto, far beyond the Kuiper Belt, human telescopes caught something moving. A shadow. A shape too large, too sharp, too unnatural to be a comet or a rock. At first, scientists argued. Maybe it was just a trick of light. Maybe it was just space debris. But then the shadow moved again, fast, deliberate, alive. And then, there was another. And another. And another. Dozens. Hundreds. Thousands. The enemy had found Earth. The devourers. They were not like anything humanity had ever imagined. They were not beasts. They were not machines. They were something in between, towering, cold, alive with steel and hunger. Their ships looked like skeletal titans, dark bones wrapped in living metal, glowing with veins of fire. They made no signals. No greetings. No warnings. They only advanced. The first encounter came when a small alien scout fleet, allied with humans, tried to intercept them. The humans watched through their satellites, through alien screens, as the battle began. It lasted only minutes. The alien ships fired first, their beams slicing through the void, their missiles streaking like falling stars. For a moment, it looked glorious. For a moment, it looked like hope. And then the devourers struck back. The human observers gasped. The aliens screamed. The enemy ships did not dodge. They did not retreat. They simply absorbed the attacks, their black hulls glowing red for an instant before fading back to darkness. And then, in silence, they answered. A single pulse of energy. A single burst of light. Entire fleets vanished. Ships broke apart like toys, their fragments swallowed into the dark. The battle was over. Just like that. The devourers did not even pause to celebrate. They simply moved on. It was not war. It was feeding. And humanity finally understood why the galaxy trembled at their name. The aliens begged Earth to run, to hide, to build defenses. But humans were different. Fear did not silence them. Fear sharpened them. Soldiers clenched their teeth. Scientists filled their labs. Engineers worked without sleep. The devourers were coming. That was no longer a story. That was truth. But truth did not break humanity. It awakened them. Still, even as humans prepared, the shadow of the devourers grew larger. Every day, telescopes caught more of them. Every day, the black swarm spread wider. It was like a storm rolling in, endless, unstoppable. And yet, one strange thing was whispered among the aliens. The devourers were strong, yes. They were countless, yes. But they were also predictable. They fought with brute strength. With overwhelming numbers. With cold precision. They did not imagine. They did not adapt. They did not think the way humans did. And maybe, just maybe, that was their weakness. The aliens could not exploit it. They had tried and failed. But humans thrived on chaos. The first human generals began to study the enemy. They looked at the battles not with despair, but with hunger. They asked questions no alien dared to ask. What if we strike here? What if we bait them? What if we fight not to win, but to break them? The aliens stared in horror at such madness. But in that madness, they also felt a spark of hope. Because while the devourers had power, humans had something else. They had imagination. They had unpredictability. They had the courage to gamble when all odds said no. The devourers kept advancing, their shadows stretching across the stars. But this time, for the first time in history, the shadow did not fall on frightened aliens alone. It fell on humans. And humans did not cower in the dark. They clenched their fists. They raised their eyes. And they whispered back into the void. If you are coming, then come. We will be waiting. The devourers had crushed empires. They had burned worlds. They had never been stopped. But they had never faced humanity. Not yet. And in the silence between stars, something shifted. For the first time, the hunters were being watched by prey that did not run. The shadow of the devourers spread. But so did the fire of humanity. The devourers had arrived. Their black ships spread across the edges of the solar system like a plague. The alien allies panicked, urging retreat. "We cannot fight them," they said. "We must hide. We must scatter." But the humans refused. Retreat was not in their nature. Instead, they prepared. The first human war fleet gathered in orbit above Earth. They were not the grand armadas of the old empires. Their ships were smaller, rougher, built in a rush. Some were old military vessels, some were converted freighters, some were experimental designs pulled straight from secret labs. Compared to the sleek alien cruisers, the human fleet looked crude: jagged armor plates, mismatched weapons, patched engines that screamed with strain. But every ship carried something the Devourers had never faced before. Humans. The aliens watched with disbelief. "You cannot win," they warned. "You are not ready. You are too reckless." The humans only smiled. "Then watch us." The first battle came near Neptune. A Devourer vanguard fleet entered the system, 30 dark ships, each larger than a city, each wrapped in living metal. They moved like predators, silent and confident. The human fleet waited in the shadow of the ice giant. Engines off. Weapons cold. Hidden in the dark. And then they struck. The humans attacked not with order, not with discipline, but with chaos. Missiles screamed across the void. Railguns thundered. Small strike craft darted between the massive enemy ships, moving faster than the Devourers expected. Explosions lit up the black. The aliens watching from a distance gasped. They had never seen anyone fight like this. The Devourers adapted quickly, turning their massive weapons on the humans. Beams of energy cut through space, tearing apart the first wave of human ships. Entire crews vanished in fire. But the humans did not break. Instead, they laughed. They changed tactics mid-battle. Ships broke formation, scattered, then regrouped in new patterns. Some feigned retreat only to strike from behind. Others sacrificed themselves, ramming enemy hulls, tearing through armor with explosions. The aliens had never seen such madness. The Devourers had never faced it. For the first time in their endless war, the enemy hesitated. And in that hesitation, humans found victory. A Devourer ship fell. Then another. The galaxy watched in disbelief as human chaos achieved what alien precision had never managed. The invincible were bleeding. But victory came at a price. Human ships burned. Crews screamed. Out of the 100 vessels that launched from Earth, nearly half were destroyed. Bodies drifted through the void, silent and cold. Yet still, the survivors fought on. One captain, her ship torn in half, ordered her last missile to fire before the vacuum swallowed her. Another pilot, out of ammunition, turned his crippled fighter into a weapon, diving straight into an enemy's glowing core. Sacrifice after sacrifice. Death after death. And yet, when the smoke cleared, the impossible had happened. The Devourer fleet was gone. Not retreated. Not victorious. Destroyed. 30 enemy ships reduced to wreckage, their broken hulls drifting near Neptune's rings. The humans had won. On Earth, billions cheered. Across the galaxy, the Council watched in stunned silence. The legends had been true. Humans did not fight like others. They fought with fury, with madness, with the will to win, no matter the cost. The aliens whispered among themselves, maybe they can save us. But even as hope spread, the truth remained. The humans had won a battle. But the war had only begun. For every Devourer ship destroyed, 100 more waited in the dark. For every victory, 1,000 losses would come. And yet, in that moment, humanity had done what no empire had achieved. They had struck the Devourers. They had drawn blood. And in the silence of the stars, the enemy stirred. The Devourers had always ignored new races. They saw them as weak, unworthy, irrelevant. But now, they had noticed humans. And for the first time, the Devourers turned their gaze fully on Earth. The humans had won their first strike. But now, the shadow of the enemy loomed larger than ever before. The galaxy held its breath. Because the question was no longer whether humans would fight. It was whether they could survive what was coming next. The first human victory shook the galaxy. For the first time, the Devourers had bled. For the first time, the impossible had been done. Entire alien civilizations whispered the same words. The humans can fight them. But victory always has a price. And humanity paid it in blood. When the wreckage of the battle was counted, nearly half the human fleet was gone. Families watched as lists of the dead grew longer each day. Soldiers never returned. Entire crews were erased, their bodies drifting forever in the black. On Earth, there was cheering, but also silence. Mothers wept for sons. Children asked why their fathers never came home. Lovers clutched photographs of faces that would never smile again. The truth was simple. Yes, humans had won. But they had lost thousands to do it. And still, no one surrendered. Instead, humanity built more ships. Faster, stronger, smarter. They worked day and night, factories glowing, engineers never sleeping. Volunteers lined up by the millions, begging to join the fleets, even though they knew most would not return. To the aliens, it was madness. One alien commander spoke in disbelief. Your people die in thousands. And yet, more come. Why? Do they not fear death? A human officer only smiled. They fear something worse. What could be worse than death? The alien asked. The officer's eyes were cold. Surrender. The next battles came quickly. Around Jupiter. Near Mars. In the asteroid belt. Each one was brutal. Each one was costly. The devourers never underestimated again. They came in greater numbers. They struck harder. Their weapons cut through human fleets like fire through paper. But humans kept fighting. A devourer ship would fall, then another. Entire human squadrons would vanish, yet still the survivors pressed forward. To the devourers, it was strange. To the aliens, it was terrifying. How could a species fight on when logic demanded retreat? How could they keep pushing when defeat was certain? The answer spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Because they are human. But victory after victory brought not only glory, it brought pain. Earth changed. Cities once filled with laughter now echoed with silence. Entire industries bent toward war. Young men and women left home, never to return. Food grew scarce. Resources stretched thin. Every victory carried a shadow. Every cheer was followed by tears. And the aliens began to wonder, how long can they keep this up? Yet, humans never stopped. One alien scholar wrote, humans do not fight for logic. They fight for something else, something we do not understand. They fight because they cannot accept defeat. Still, the devourers pressed closer. One day, they struck a human colony on Europa. The humans fought desperately, but the devourers overwhelmed them. Entire cities were consumed. Millions died in hours. But even then, the survivors refused to yield. Civilians armed themselves with mining tools, with broken weapons, with bare fists. Some fought until their last breath, their last scream echoing in frozen tunnels. When alien allies saw this, they wept. They could not understand such defiance. But for humans, it was simple. They would rather die fighting than live as prey. The cost of war grew heavier. Ships were lost faster than they could be built. Every victory tasted of ash. Every sunrise was dimmed by news of more dead. And yet, the fire of humanity only burned brighter. Across Earth, across every colony, a single idea spread like lightning. We fight, or we are nothing. The galaxy watched in awe. Some called humans mad. Some called them cursed. But all agreed on one truth. Humans carried something no other species had. Not better weapons. Not stronger armies. But an unbreakable will. A will that made them dangerous. A will that made them feared. A will that might, just might, save the galaxy. And in the silence of space, the devourers felt it too. For the first time in their endless conquest, they began to notice something strange. Their prey was no longer running. Their prey was no longer hiding. Their prey was fighting back, and winning. The devourers had consumed thousands of worlds. But none had ever cost them so much. None had ever bled them like humanity. The cost of war was high. Humans knew it. The aliens knew it. Even the devourers knew it. But humans would pay that price again and again. Because to them, The cost of war was nothing compared to the cost of surrender. And the galaxy finally understood. This was why only humans could turn the tide. The humans had fought battle after battle. They had bled the Devourers more than anyone thought possible. But the enemy was not finished. The Devourers had learned. And now, they struck with their greatest weapon. It began with silence. Entire star systems went dark, their signals vanishing. Colonies stopped answering. Fleets disappeared without a trace. At first, the Council thought it was confusion, an error, a broken relay. But then the truth arrived, carried by the screams of survivors. The Devourers had unleashed something new. A weapon so vast, so terrible, that even the stars trembled. A burning machine the size of a moon. A fortress of living metal. Its core glowed with the energy of captured suns. The aliens called it the Harbinger. Where it moved, nothing survived. Planets cracked. Moons shattered. Armies were erased in minutes. It was not just a weapon. It was despair given shape. The galaxy fell silent. Even the bravest leaders began to whisper of surrender. If the Devourers had such power, what hope could remain? But on Earth, there was no surrender. When news of the Harbinger reached humanity, their leaders met in secret. Soldiers, scientists, and generals gathered around a single table. The decision was quick, brutal, dangerous. "We cannot wait," a general said. "We cannot defend," a scientist added. "We must strike." The plan was madness. Suicide. No alien would ever dare it. But humans were not aliens. They would not sit and wait for death. They would take the fight to the enemy's heart. The plan was simple in words, impossible in practice. Strike at the Devourer homeworld. The Council raged when they heard it. "Impossible," they shouted. "Suicide," they cried. No fleet could survive such a journey. But the humans only answered with grim smiles. "We don't need all of us to survive. We only need enough." The aliens stared in disbelief. Such logic was madness. And yet, in that madness, there was something terrifying. A chance. Preparations began. Human engineers tore apart every surviving ship, reforging them into weapons of desperation. New drives were built to pierce enemy lines. Old ships were stripped down to carry bombs stronger than anything ever seen. Every man and woman who joined the mission knew the truth. Few would return. Most would not. And still, the volunteers came in millions. Why? The aliens asked again and again. Why fight when the cost is so high? The answer was always the same. Because surrender costs more. The Devourers, confident in their Harbinger, did not expect such defiance. They pressed forward, their fortress tearing through systems, burning everything in its path. But whispers spread through the enemy ranks. Strange reports. Small human fleets appearing where none should be. Raids cutting supply lines. Sabotage deep in enemy territory. The Devourers, for the first time, began to feel something they did not understand. Uncertainty. And then, the humans revealed their true plan. The largest fleet humanity had ever built gathered in the shadow of Saturn. Thousands of ships, old and new, broken and patched, armed with weapons stolen, built, and imagined. Aliens who once doubted now joined them. Not out of courage, but because humans had made them believe again. Together, they prepared for the final strike. Not to defend Earth. Not to protect colonies. But to end the war at its source. The turning point had come. The galaxy watched. The Council prayed. The humans armed their weapons, their faces hard with resolve. The mission was simple: reach the Devourer homeworld. Destroy it, or die trying. It was a plan no other race would dare. But for humans, it was the only way. The stars seemed to hold their breath as the fleet lit their engines, fire blooming against the dark. The war was about to change. Forever. The human fleet moved like fire across the stars. Thousands of ships, burning engines, weapons armed. Ahead of them waited death. The Devourer homeworld. A world black as night, wrapped in living metal, feeding on captured suns. The Harbinger guarded it, glowing with stolen power. No fleet had ever reached this place. None had ever dared. Until now. The battle began before the humans even arrived. Devourer fleets poured from the darkness, endless swarms of living ships. They struck like a storm, tearing into human lines. Explosions lit the void. Entire squadrons vanished. Ships cracked apart, their crews screaming into silence. But still, the humans pushed forward. "Hold the line!" voices shouted over comms. "Push through!" cried another. Every second, more died. Every second, the Devourers pressed closer. But every second, the humans refused to stop. The Harbinger moved at last. Its vast body blotted out the stars, its weapons burning brighter than suns. With a single blast, it erased a human dreadnought, then another. Even alien allies despaired. "No one can stand against such power," they whispered. But the humans answered with fire. Missiles, plasma, railguns, everything they had. Thousands of weapons struck the Harbinger at once. The monster burned, wounded, but it did not fall. Then, a single human captain spoke words that echoed across the fleet. "We were never meant to survive this. We were meant to win it." The plan was revealed. It was not enough to fight the Harbinger. It had to be destroyed, no matter the cost. And so, the humans unleashed their final weapon. Hidden inside their fleet were ships carrying colossal bombs, weapons built to tear stars apart. No alien had dared to use them. The risk was too high, the destruction too great. But humans had no fear of risk. They only feared defeat. The bombers broke formation, racing toward the Harbinger. The Devourers screamed in fury, swarming to stop them. One by one, the bombers fell. Explosions ripped them apart. But more came. And more. And more. Every loss bought a second. Every death carried the mission closer. Finally, one ship broke through. Its hull burning. Its crew already dead. But its payload still alive. With its last breath, the bomber slammed into the Harbinger's heart. The galaxy lit with fire. The explosion shook the stars. The Harbinger screamed, its living metal tearing apart, its core splitting open. The humans had done it. The monster was dead. But the cost was everything. Half the fleet gone. Millions lost. Silence filled the comms where once voices had shouted. Still, the humans pressed forward. The path to the Devourer homeworld was open. The final strike began. Every weapon turned on the black world below. Missiles rained. Cannons roared. The planet shook under the fury of humanity. The Devourers fought back, their last defenders pouring into space. But the humans had no fear left. They had already paid the price. One by one, their weapons broke the surface. One by one, the world cracked. And then, at last, it split apart. The Devourer homeworld was gone. The war was over. The galaxy watched in silence as the impossible became truth. The Devourers, who had devoured thousands of worlds, who had burned empires, who had been unstoppable, were defeated. By humans. On Earth, bells rang. Cities erupted in joy and sorrow. Families wept for those lost, but they also cheered for what had been won. The aliens who once doubted now bowed their heads in respect. They knew the truth. The galaxy had been saved not by logic, not by strength, not by numbers, but by the will of a race that refused to surrender. In the end, the legends had been true. Humans carried something no other species had. Not greater weapons, not stronger bodies, but something more dangerous. Defiance, sacrifice, hope. And now, the galaxy would never forget it. Because when the stars themselves seemed doomed, only humans could win.